Well, good afternoon and welcome to you. Welcome to this Connect M3 podcast. And today we are absolutely thrilled to have a very special guest with us that's been doing something quite unique and marvellous for the last 6 months. This person has been travelling the whole country, in fact covering something like 9,000 miles, speaking to different audiences across the whole of the UK and including Scotland, and talking about the subject that we're going to be talking about today. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our guest, the Bowlerhat Farmer, Mark Byford.
David,
how are you?
Pleasure to be back. Pleasure to be back.
And it's lovely to have you here, Mark, and especially at this point in time when, having said that you've been travelling the country for the last 6 months and covered, I think, something like, you said, 9,000 miles?
Yeah, it's over 9,000 miles. Yeah.
And
in a camper van.
In a camper van. But not always in a camper van, I think.
No. But we started off in a car for a few weeks. Then we bought the camper van because we knew we were going to be getting further away from home. So we were in the position that we bought a camper van for £1,200, put it on the road, and you'll know last time we came down to see you, we broke down, got it repaired, we got back on the road, and apart from one little hiccup in Scotland where the water pump went wrong, we are now at, I think, 9,300 miles, I think, and by the time we get home it should be about 10,000 miles, I reckon. So it's been a journey.
My goodness, it certainly has. And in front of the interesting thing is that you haven't been following a route that starts here, starts at point A, goes to point Z at the end of the tour, because you've been darting around from left and right all over the country, haven't you?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for the expression fail to plan, plan to fail. What I will say in my defence is that when we started originally booking the tour, my intention was to do one tour date every month. So I was only ever going to do half a dozen tour dates. And then Uncle Ray died, whose farm we were on. So the opportunity then came, slightly presented, that I might want to take myself away from the family farm, let's say, which I did. And as a result of that, I thought, well, I'll get on social media and I'll push the fact that we want some more tour dates. Well, of course, I'd got one book there and 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 one book there. And then we just started filling in the dots, and I'd got myself, and I'll show you one of the problems. Right, this is a mobile phone. And when you type in on your sat nav, and you look and you go, well, actually, Grimsby to Doncaster, that's just down the road. You know, the fact that it might be 100 miles away, or whatever it is, it looks about that far. So when we started going from Land's End to John Groats, we soon ended up with this, oh my Christ, what have we done here? I've never really left the village, so I wasn't the best person to plan this tour. So yeah, it's been an interesting, but we have done a bit of frogging about, but that's what's made it so absolutely brilliant. Because while we've been touring about, we've obviously had the opportunity to see the country. Obviously Gloria, fresh to the country, only she's been here a couple of years.
Now Gloria, hold on.
Yeah.
Gloria is your road manager, isn't she? And your partner.
She's my partner first and foremost. Tour manager, I would say. She's probably the reason the tour continued and happened, because I know I would have, after 2 weeks, I'd have run out of underwear and run out of food, and I'd have said, well, I need to go home to mum's. But she's dealt with everything in the background, making videos, putting together tour information, sorting out, food, keeping the bedding clean, finding out where we are, sorting out everything.
So Gloria's kept the show on the road.
She has very much kept that. For me, I drive there, rock up, do a speech, go home.
That's all there is to it.
There's nothing else to do. Yeah.
Well, look, there'll be people watching us, listening to what we're talking about, but they'll be unfamiliar with you and the Bowlerhat Farmer, and what this talk is all about, and what you've been doing for the last 2 years or more. So I wonder if you could give a brief description of what you're about, Mark, and what you've been doing before you started the tour,
yep.
And of course then we're getting to the details of what happened during the tour.
Yeah, okay. So let's backtrack. So for me, I was in the position that I've had 40 years in the food trade. And in that 40 years in the food trade, I've been in the position that I've seen it changed considerably. As a result of the changes we've seen made within the food industry, how do we then progress forward to continue to supply good quality food to the plate? So as a grower, a producer, as a greengrocer, having the farm, having the family farm and so forth in the background, I could see so much changing, and it wasn't changing for better, that's for sure. So I decided that after 40 years of doing the fruit and veg wholesale and running the farm and everything, with Uncle Ray dying, I decided that what would be a good idea is to take on the road a talk which I'd delivered several times last year, 24, and to just bring to the attention of the public and the farmers what wanted to listen, what's actually happening with inside the food system, and the corruption that's involved, and two, the poison what's being fed to people through the evolution of the food system in this country, and not just our country.
Right. Anyway, can I hold you there?
Go on.
You've mentioned two very serious topics there: corruption.
Yep.
And poisoning.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about both those things?
Yeah, sure. So the corruption inside the food system is rife. And I mean rife. I'll give you a classic example of one, which I did an interview with Richard Vobes, and in the interview I mentioned, we was outside my farm shop at the time, and I mentioned the fact of vegetable washing. And Richard said, "Oh, you mean when you get a bowl of water and wash the vegetables?" And I said, "No. What I mean is when they import foreign fruit and veg into the UK, put it through a pack house, pack it into British packaging and sell it as British." And it clearly isn't. So, and that is rife within the food trade.
So what you're saying is that the packages that we might pick off the shelves in one of the supermarkets, one of the major supermarkets, that it's wrapped in plastic, usual thing, and it's got a Union flag on it.
Yep.
That doesn't mean to say
No.
it's come from anywhere in the UK, but it may well come from Spain, or dare I say Israel, or somewhere else in the Mediterranean area.
I'll give you a classic example of one which I know happens on a regular basis, because I know the lorry drivers that are involved, and I know the farm it happens on. So this farm is in Norfolk. I won't name the farm because it's of a very high profile, but I got a call from a lorry driver one day, a friend of mine. He said to me, "I'm in Ipswich Dock picking up red onions to deliver to said farm in Norfolk." And I said, "Right." He said, "But we're taking it straight into their pack house and it's been packed in English packaging." I said, "Oh." I said, "Where's it coming from?" And he said, "Egypt." But this farm in Norfolk owns farm in Egypt. So they bring it in under their own guise, package it as their own, and that goes out. And the corruption is horrendous within the food system. I mean, again, there's all different types of different things going on. We've got at present mountains of grain coming in from Ukraine. Okay, that's coming into the UK. This is grain what was approved by Russia to leave Ukraine and was supposed to be going to Africa for aid. And it's been redirected and it's coming in at Tilbury Docks. And we know it's going on and nothing's been done about it. So the corruption is at a massive high level. And this isn't something where this is someone working in the factory pulling a fast one, got one farmer coming instead of another. This is real hardcore corruption.
Okay, well, clearly this is going to be a subject which maybe we could explore again in more detail, because this is going to be news to a lot of people that don't realise that this is what's going on. The second subject you mentioned, poisoning.
Absolutely.
Talk about
so
that.
let's look at farming as a whole. So for me, I'm a vegetable grower. I produce everything with my hands. Everything's about, I don't need heavy tractors, don't need big equipment, everything's about growing with hands. Now, we grow vegetables. And as far as I'm concerned, food is either fruit and vegetables or meat, dairy, whatever that needs to look like. But it isn't wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize and rape. Okay? All of those things, if you're going to take oilseed rape, carcinogenic, you've got wheat, we know we can't digest it, especially the wheat and barley and oats, especially because of the high levels of glyphosate that's been added to them to kill them on the field and kill the weeds around them. and all that's in the food, changing the protein content of the food. So when people say I'm gluten intolerant, they're not. They're actually intolerant to the chemicals on the grain.
Glyphosate.
Yeah. So the glyphosate is what's changing the protein value. So we have to take all these things into account. Now, as a classic example, Gloria walked into Sainsbury's in Bury St Edmunds a few months back, and she went in to get some nuts. Simple thing. Now, what I find highly amusing is when you walk into a supermarket and they have an aisle that says healthy food section.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it's healthy food, what's the rest of it? Now, she came out, and about half an hour later she said to me, "Do you know what? I've been in there all that time." She said, "No one's spoken to me. There's no personal service anymore for anybody, obviously. And above all else, there's no food in the place." She said, "The shelves are all full, but there's no food. Everything's processed, packaged, overpackaged, you know." So we have to start looking at, from the public's point of view, if you don't want to eat poisoned food, because we know there's so many additives, so many hormones, so many antibiotics to keep it packaged on the shelf without going off, that none of that is good for us. We need meat what goes off within a few days.
Sure. Well, having said that, this circulates us neatly back to the main topic of conversation today, which is to talk about the tour, because what this centres on is people having access to good quality, non-chemicalised food that's basically in their local vicinity.
Yeah.
That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right, so some while ago you had this idea to go on the road, and I don't think you had much of a plan.
That's
Is
fair.
that right?
That's fair, yeah. I'll accept that.
Okay. But, as like other things in life, you get that gut feeling that I need to do this, and I don't know exactly why, I don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
I just need to do this.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And that's basically how it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I'll be the first to say, and I know we've had this discussion numerous times, I am not religious. However, and I do have to add the asterisks here to the however, because while we've been away, Mark's been on a journey, and not just a journey of 9,000 miles. I've been talking to a lot of people, David, while we're away, and looking at the state of our country. Let's if we just touch that subject, and one of the things is that we've lost, in my opinion, our Christian values. And I say I'm not religious. Take religion out of this. Our Christian values, and I deem myself as a Christian on the grounds that I was brought up in a Christian household. My parents are married in a Christian church. I was married in a Christian church. The kids did Christmas. The kids did Easter, and we bought into that Christian society. We behave in a certain manner as a society. And we've seen that eroded over the last 50 years beyond belief. No family units anymore, no good quality food anymore, whatever that might look like. Mm. So for me, whilst I've been on this tour, I've been talking to other people saying about how I feel about my Christian values, and taking religion out of it. So if you take away the religious side of it, is there God? I don't know. I always say the universe will provide. Gloria says God will provide. And my cousin Mike, who's a pastor, says they're the same thing.
Some people say the government will provide, don't they?
Well, some people think the government will provide. What they'll provide you with, I don't know.
No.
So I guess from my side, as the leaving home, the non-religious person, but one statement all the way through this tour kept coming up. And that is, you're doing God's work.
How about that? And
that was said loads and loads of times by loads of people, especially when, because, we've been on this journey, we've had no income, so, it's fair to say. Yes, we've been paid to do some talks, and, but when you drive 9,000 miles, you can imagine just the expense of the fuel, I think, was about £4,500 worth. So, where does the money come from? Well, people's kindness, and that is, this is one of the biggest things that I've found with this tour. We've done Land's End to John O'Groats, Wales to East Anglia. We did Land's End originally to Newcastle, then back and started again, and did all sorts of things in between, festivals and all sorts. And we've travelled around the UK, and I think it's fair to say that we would all say we live in a real messed up country at the moment. And within that messed up, we can all think the worst of everybody else outside our front door. And I think that's really sad that we've got to that point. And we've travelled the entire length and breadth of the country on other people's kindness. We've been put in a position of housed, fed and moneyed. So if you can take that over 2 people, 6.5, 7 months worth of a journey, 9,000 miles, we've spoken in front of 20,000 people, and all of that has happened because people want to support us. Not because, do they believe in Mark, the Bowlerhat? I don't know. Do people want to see better food on the plate? Of course they do. Do they? But for some reason, these people have had this urge to assist us to achieve this outcome.
Well, Mark, you've got quite a huge following on the various social media platforms, haven't you? So people know about you, and they know that you talk well, you can present your case well. But there's something else that's an important ingredient to what you're doing, we feel, and that is you seem to be touching on a button at the moment that is very sensitive to everybody currently in the UK and beyond. People are ripe now for significant change in all kinds of areas, but because your speciality, of course, is food, growing of food, and supplying it locally. Yeah. And I think a lot of people have recognised that there is an intrinsically important message in what you're delivering now to a vast number of people around the country.
Yeah, one of the things which I obviously speak about in the tour is about the 2030 agenda. And whilst a lot of people don't know of it, don't want to believe it's possibly true, it doesn't change the fact it's there. It's been put in place by a non-elected world government called the World Economic Forum, and a big part of that is to depopulate the planet through starvation. And people can say that's a bit far-fetched, Mark, but go and do the research. Look at the 2030 agenda. It tells you quite clearly we're going to get from 8 billion people to 500 million people. Well, the quickest way to achieve that, they tried certain things which didn't work, so starvation is the quickest option. Now, for me, whilst we've been on the tour, I've also been involved in all sorts of conversations on world news channels. So and I do that every week. I'm on different news channels around the world, and this isn't something that's just happening in the UK. This is a worldwide attack on the food and farming supply chain.
Well, because you know what Connect is about, and we're monitoring the news platforms across the world on a daily basis, and those news platforms are not just the mainstream media platforms where you don't get this kind of story. It's different platforms. It's something that we call the people's media. So these are very capable media platforms. Some of them are well funded, and some of them are individuals. Yeah. But the point about them is that they're all drawn together by the fact that they're interested in the truth, and they go pursuing evidence for that truth. Yeah. And as you are remarking, there are a lot of indications that there is some kind of agenda going on to actually reduce the number of people that are living on this planet. Yeah. And it's not just about food, it's about all kinds of things. Euthanasia being one of them.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if you look at the agenda, and I don't want to get drawn into it too much, but if you look at the agenda, and it clearly is there, and if you look at whether it's food, health, education, housing, migration, anything at all, everything is wrong. Everything. There's nothing you can look at in the society today and go, that just that one thing is absolutely so right. Yeah. We've had communities absolutely shredded. And travelling around the country, especially when we was up in Scotland, most of the people we stayed with don't even have a door key. They don't lock their houses. And that to me was like, that's what England used to be like 50 years ago. Yeah. You know, 50, 60, 70 years ago. So there has to come a point where we get some level of sensibility and accountability back into our country. And for me, you know, we all want change. We know what does change look like. That's the biggest question we have, and how would we achieve that? For me, this has got to come down to the public. No one's coming to rescue us, David. You know, people say to me, the people in the white hats are going to sort all this out. If you believe that nonsense, you're more naive than anything. There's only one person going to save you, and that's yourself. So for me, this journey has been about making people aware about the potential of what's coming, and then give them the options about what they can do about it. Right. Could you stockpile food? Could you grow your own food? Could you get involved in a community project? These are the things what people need to be hearing, so that in society as we are at the moment, we're not just broken, we're absolutely destroyed, and we've got to rebuild back. The community is the most important, for me, the community is the most important part of this.
And I couldn't agree with you more. Now, in the reactions that you've picked up from speaking to 20,000 plus people around the country over the last 6 months, it sounds like you feel, or you sense, that there is great enthusiasm now to get hold of this situation and change it for the better. For the better for the people individually and also the communities in which they live. Am I right?
100%. And I think it doesn't matter what town we've gone to. Okay, bear in mind that we've done 100 talks, so you can say 100 different venues, and within the 100 venues we've had people who have been from the stand in the park to yellow boards to truth groups to farmers to housewives to church groups, all sorts what we've done, and the same thing is always there. How do we resolve this? How do we get back to being a good quality community-based unit again, where mum and dad and the kids are there, not the nonsense which we're being fed through the schools at present, where it's okay for your son to be your daughter, and and Jeremiah can be Jemima tomorrow, whatever it might be, to get back to some real good hard family values again.
Right. So, having said that, what's been the main message that you've been delivering to all these people? I mean, it's got to be, obviously it's more than hope. It's something which I think you have when you don't have anything else. But you've been inspiring people, haven't you, to basically think about what they can do and then get up, join together with others and do something about it. So tell us about what you've been suggesting that people might do.
Okay, let me backtrack. Let me backtrack to February when we did the very first talk. And from my side, I'd been involved in the No Farmers No Food campaign. I'd been involved in setting up, helping set up Farmers to Action. And right the way through all of that, it was all about the doom and gloom. Okay, I'd been to London. I'd been to the first protest in London, organised by the No Fecking Use Party, the National Farmers Union. And we'd got to the point, it was like, there's all this doom and gloom. And I started on the tour, and as I was doing the first talks, an hour and a half talk, and an hour over it was nearly all about, oh my God, what we're going to do, guys. But as we travelled around the country, David, and we've gone to see the different organisations, whether that's community farms, farmers that are making the change to come from chemical farming to chemical-free farming, we have been inspired beyond belief. And from our side, what we saw as we've gone around the country is this. So to give you an idea, an hour of doom and gloom had got to, by the on my talks now, we can talk about that for 10 minutes, but let's talk about the good stuff, what we're seeing around the country. Let's talk about the positive stuff, what's going on. Let's talk about people who are organising seed saving, new composting companies that are coming up, electroculture, all the great things what are going on to put more food on the table and a better quality of food.
And interestingly, I'm right again, I think, that these ideas, they don't come from government or government departments or even local councils, do they?
No.
They come from inspired individuals.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And what we've seen travelling around the country, and we have, bear in mind, after 9,000 miles, and we've spoke to thousands of people, there is some crazy buggers out there, David. But they've got some brilliant ideas, some brilliant projects. Yes, they might need funding to put it together. Yes, they might need assistance from volunteers to help. But in there is these great ideas that are just bubbling to break the surface. Now, bear in mind that a lot of these things, if you take electroculture, especially, these are things what were available 120, 130 years ago and have been suppressed by the states around the world. And that information is so good it can't be suppressed. It's bubbling to the surface again. Free energy, the things which we know are out there, that yes, they might not bubble up for another 100 years, but they're never going to keep them down long term.
Yeah.
It's always going to come to the surface.
It's very strange. I mean, looking at this over a period of time as we have, it's as if the lid is being kept on everybody, controlled by politicians and the rich power class. The power rich class, and others too. They're keeping the lid on inspiration, innovation, and the rest of it. For what purpose we can only guess at for the time being.
Yeah, what I would say on that, it's a bit like a pressure cooker. Eventually the pressure goes and the top pops off.
Yes.
And
we're getting close to that.
I don't think we're far off that, in this country especially. If 2.5 million people can march on London a few weeks ago, I think that puts emphasis on the fact of how many people are no longer content with their 9 to 5.
Yes.
And what they're given in the parameters around that.
Yes.
When you can't feed your kids because you're paying for the electricity bill, or you can't heat the house because you're paying for the school fees, whatever it might be, something has to give.
Yeah. And
I think we're very close to that point. So I think as a result of that side, what we've seen on talking to the public want someone to just go, this is what we're going to do. There is no leaders anymore, David. Who have we got at this point within the political structure? Who do you want us to look at? Starmer, for instance, would you look at him and think, well, he's probably going to lead us into war. He's not going to lead us into prosperity.
Yes.
Who have we got who's a world leader? If you've got someone like Maggie Thatcher or Churchill, where you can go, crikey, they're giving the good talk, even if they're not going to deliver. I mean, who have we got at the moment in there? And I think that's one of the things, people need leadership.
They do. But one of the problems that we've seen, and as others have too, is that the problem with a leader, and we could name a few good ones, to be honest, along with a number of bad ones. The ideas tend to come from them and them alone. Now, a servant leader, which is a term that we use repeatedly, a servant leader is someone quite different. They're in place to lead a group of people, let's say a country in this case, but they're listening to where the people want to go, and because of who they are and what they can do, they lead people where they want to go. That's a true servant leader.
Sure.
And we don't have one in this country, and I can't think of one, to be honest. And that's partly, I think, due to the style of the political system that we have in the UK, which we've had this discussion before.
Sure.
That's a system that needs to be put in the toilet, and we start again.
It's broken.
Yeah.
We know that. It's completely broken. And unless we get some severe change, we just go around this perpetual cycle of, let's face it, whether it's red, blue, green, yellow, who would it matter who people voted for? That's the uni party, we know that. So if there's either got to be something new, what transforms that given time, or what's the other options?
Sure.
Carnage. And we can't have that.
Let's say we don't have that, and something very special happens, and there's a movement building in the country now. You've seen it firsthand.
Yeah.
The 2.5 million that you mentioned that were in London a couple of weeks ago, that's testament to some serious things happening, good things happening.
Yeah,
really.
absolutely.
But can you tell us a little bit more now about what you were telling these people as to what can happen in the supply, in the growing of food, and the supply and the distribution of food? What grabbed these people's imagination once you'd spoken to them?
Okay, let's backtrack to 2020, and if I use our farm and what I know as the experience of this. So in 2020, I could make a phone call. So pandemic happens, our farm shop goes from taking £100 a day to £15,000 a day. Our farm shop goes from selling 10 boxes of vegetables a week to 400 a day. Okay? Could we get hold of stock? Yes. No problem at all. We could supply anything anyone wanted. Supermarkets were deliberately, and I say deliberately, and I have lots of proof about this, were deliberately holding back the food so that the public assumed there was a breakdown in supply.
Ooh.
Okay? Now there was a breakdown in supply because the supermarkets were not collecting the food from the farms, were not delivering it to the stores, so the public couldn't buy it. And we were getting farmers phone us and say, contracts, with supermarkets not being collected, can we sell you anything? Oh yes please, as much as you've got. We would have an artic load coming from different farms on a daily basis.
This sounds a little bit like an agenda.
Well, call it what you want, pay it what it's worth. So as a result of that, and another thing that comes out of that is that I used to be able to order from Holland within 36 hours and get an Arctic load of food into the UK. 36 hours. Placed the order, it was at my farm. Now we can't even get that order delivered in really 2-3 weeks. That's the lead time now because of Brexit and the UK government not delivering what we wanted out of Brexit. So one of the things which also occurs is that supermarkets now hold 67% less stock than they did in the pandemic. Now, let's take the argument that the supermarkets did not plan what happened, and they were not part of an agenda, and they ran out of food in 3 days. 67% less food in the system says to me it's going to run out a lot quicker than 3 days, probably 1 day. So if we've got a food system where, and my kids do it, I know, can go to Tesco's every night and pick up dinner. Well, that's all good and well while Tesco's has got their 1 day's worth of food on the shelf. But what happens when they haven't? So for me, the journey for me in talking to the public has been about that. Let's take a little bit more ownership of our preservation. Can we think about stockpiling a bit more food? Can we think about growing a bit more food? Have you thought about maybe getting the kids some seeds for Christmas or their birthday so that they can start playing about with that? And getting kids to understand about how to grow food, how to preserve food, how to freeze food. Maybe have a couple of joints in the fridge in the freezer rather than I'll pop in today and pick one up. And to also get people back to understanding what good food is and where to get that. So let's not go to a supermarket. Let's go to a really good butcher. Let's find a greengrocer, a baker. A baker what uses 4 or 5 ingredients in his bread rather than a list so long they have to put a sticker on the back of the bloody packet. And so as we're going around the country and seeing this, most of the people, David, are my age that turn up for the meetings. I'm going to be honest. They're 50 plus age. They're the age where they can still remember what it was like to go and climb a tree as a kid. They didn't have a mobile phone. We knew it was time to come home when the street light went on. And if you weren't home within 30 minutes of the street light coming on, you'd get a thick ear. Now kids, you're not allowed to punish your kids. And all of this is about societal breakdown. So we've got to get back, in my opinion, to people understanding, just on the food side here, people understanding where it comes from, educating them on how to produce it, grow it, cook it, preserve it, whatever that might look like, so that kids have got a greater understanding. I used to have kids come to my farm, David, and they would be there looking around the farm, and you'd say, okay, this is a pig. What do we get from pig? And they'd say, I don't know. I'd say, okay, well, have you heard of a thing called pork, what you eat? Yeah. Well, this is where your pork comes from killing the pig, and we get the pig. Pork makes pork chops, it makes sausages, we can have pork burgers, we can have... Oh, they don't know. You send them into the chicken houses and say, right, go and collect the eggs, and they come out, you would think they've struck gold, because they've never seen an egg laid before by a chicken, and where they might find it. We'd say to the kids about sheep and about the wool, and from wool you can make clothes. Or a classic example, and I'll tell you this one, classic example, had a teacher, we had a school party one day, 2 buses pulled up, and a teacher comes walking down past the muck heap. And next to the muck heap, I had a couple of square metres of oats, wheat and barley. And I said to the kids, so kids, do you know what you get from this one? This is barley, do you know what that makes? No, I don't know. I said, okay, this makes Daddy's beer, Daddy's lager. And this is wheat. From wheat we can make breakfast cereals, we can make bread, we can make this. And from oats is what makes your porridge in the mornings. And the kids were fascinated. And as they went to get on the bus, the teacher said to me, and this was, I swear this on my kids' life, the teacher says to me, Mark, thank you so much for today. She said, I didn't know that's where our food come from.
Oh my goodness.
And she was in her 30s, and I thought, how can you educate these children into anything when you do not even know what bread comes from, or what beer comes from, or what porridge comes from? That's a sad state of affairs.
We've all heard the questions raised, of our children. Where do apples come from? Well, they come from the supermarket. And it's ridiculous. But on this subject, Mark, it's also true, isn't it, that a good number of younger people now, younger parents, they don't know how to cook good food.
They've got a clue.
The solution to food, feeding the children and themselves, is to get processed food out of a packet
100%.
that you stick in the microwave, and a few minutes later you've got it on your plate. Ping, it's ready. We've got to educate. We have got to educate.
Yeah.
That's the we've got to educate everybody in how to. Well, first of all, how to access good quality food, and secondly, how to prepare and cook it.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me, what's come out of this tour, especially, is one thing which I've been looking at to set up is a CIC, a community interest company, and within that, the education side of food is going to play a big part. It's got to. And travelling around the country, one of the biggest things that people have asked me is, Mark, how do we get involved? And a lot of people who have got, let's say, retired teachers, retired chefs, cooks, whatever that might be, have a lot of information to give. And for me, that needs to be passed down to that lower generation, because we've skipped, in our lifetime, we've skipped a generation. We've got, if you take my kids as that example, they are that missed generation. When we get down to their kids, we have an opportunity to take them and teach them again. But that schooling of 20 years, that block where we've just seen the eradication of good education. Now, Dave, when we went to school, how did you learn your times tables? One's one is, you had a cane and you went across the board. And if you got one wrong, you got the cane. We were taught how to count. Kids can't even count anymore. They pick up a bloody phone to go for the calculator. Yeah. They don't know how to work things out. There's no critical thinking anymore in kids. So we've got to get the kids. In my opinion, this starts with the kids. We can't do anything for their parents now. That generation in between my youngest son of 10 and my oldest girl at 40, that window is the bit we've lost.
Yes.
And we've got to get that next generation, get hold of them and give them real good education.
Yeah, and the spotlight needs to be placed on education as much as it does be placed on food.
Yeah.
Mark, going back to the growing of food, and all the people that you've met and you've spoken to, which includes ordinary people in the communities as well as growers and farmers, what's the mood that you've picked up among those people about getting involved, and particularly farmers, because they've got so much ground they can use? What's the mood among these people to actually stop what they're doing, stop growing for major corporations that use the product put it into processed food, and actually grow real wholesome vegetables?
Okay, two things. One, we need to change the food system as a whole. It's broken. So for the farmers what are producing byproducts of the industry for putting into the supermarket supply chain, they've got to change. They're the ones who've got to make the biggest changes. Whether you're talking about coming away from chemicals to organic, chemical free, or what they grow, because here's the problem I have. If a farmer, and I've got a friend who's a farmer who's got 5,000 acres and he grows wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize, rapeseed. Have you at any point in your life thought to yourself, I'll just pop to the local farm and get a ton of sugar beet in a dump sack and I'll take it home and do something with it?
Yeah.
No. Would you think to yourself, I'll tell you what, I could do with a 25 kilo bag of potatoes, I could do with a few kilos of carrots, a few kilos of onions? Yes. Farmers have been encouraged over the last 50 years not to grow what the public wants. They've been encouraged to grow what need. They've been encouraged to grow what the supermarkets want to sell them.
Yes.
Okay? And that's been deliberately done between government, DEFRA, the Governmental Department for Agriculture,
and major
corporations. Yeah. So if we're going to change things, we need to change that. So we need to change farmers' thinking of what they're going to grow. And it might be that doesn't happen overnight. Let's face it, we've been 100 years getting to this point. This might take us a few years to get, and I don't think there's an easy fix to this, but I will say we need to come away from chemicals. We need to go back to more mixed farms, in my opinion. So we've got animal manure on a farm. We go back to putting beans on the ground to get natural nitrogen in the ground, and we can feed those beans to the animals. We've got to start looking at every aspect of our farming, right through from the sowing of the seed, do we need GMO seed? No, we need really good quality seed. So let's get some heritage organic seed. Let's look at the manure we're going to put on there, because we don't want to be in the position of putting on nitram. We want to put on horse manure, so or slurry, whatever, cow slurry, whatever that might be. So we've got to look at every solitary aspect of this, what we're growing. So do we need wheat, barley, sugar beet, oats, maize, rapeseed? No. We need, let's get some potatoes, some carrots, some plum trees planted.
Some parsnips.
Some real good quality food.
Yeah.
So if we can achieve farmers to get that understanding, we can then get the public to buy into that. Now, at the moment, the public are going, my biggest frustration on this tour is people say to me, Mark, I love what you're talking about. Where can we buy it from?
Right.
And they go, I've been to my farm shop, they haven't got anything in there. I've been to my farm shop, they import it on. I've been to my farm shop, it's too expensive. That's the bit what for the last 7 months I've been racking my head about and think we've finally come up with solutions. And that to me is now the exciting bit.
Building a network of supply chains and organisation around delivering and supplying food.
Yes. So just to give you an idea, two companies what I've been helping to build and working with, and as a result of what's going to come next. Because for me, tour's now over, we're done. Tomorrow we head back to Suffolk, and as a result of that, we get on with the rest of our lives and what's that going to look like. So we've been working with a company in Scotland called the Good Food Project. And the Good Food Project are effectively an online supermarket that supplies chemical-free food, organic food, direct to the house of the public. Okay? Then let's talk about Organity, which are based in Gerrards Cross, just outside London, and they deliver same products, but in a different manner. So they deliver their products. 30 people in a village, let's say, will order their groceries. It all turns up on one van to a central point, let's say community village hall, whatever, church, whatever it might be, and they come together over a cup of tea and a cake and they talk about what's going on in the community, get the community back together again, and they all take their shopping home.
Right.
Okay? But they're both delivering the same thing in a slightly different manner.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of things we know are missing in that, and the conversations we've had this morning. One, lots and lots of farm shops want to supply more product but don't know where to buy it from. So I think there needs to be a wholesale side to this that encapsulates the supply of the things that the farm doesn't grow. If they set up a farm shop and they've got 20 types of vegetables, fantastic, but they might not produce flour, they might not produce milk.
Right.
So that supply chain would supply them the bits what they can't produce themselves.
Yes.
But let's make clear one thing, it needs to be local sourced food at that point if possible.
And this overriding organisation could sort all of that, couldn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other side was further to a conversation I'd had last year that what about if we could come up with something where we could have more farm shops? And I know that you've been working on something, what you enlightened me on this morning about the potential of pop-up shops. And that to me was one of those light bulb moments where you go, Christ, that's the bit I missed. Because lots of farmers won't have a spare barn to put down as a small shop. And if they did, they haven't got time to run it. We was in a farm yesterday, Hillsbury Jerseys. They got some amazing raw milk there. But they don't have anyone to run the shop because it's on a trust system, because they're milking the cows, they're mucking out, they're doing this, they haven't got time. So how do we change that bit? That's where the community comes in. The community and the farmer working together. So it might be in the future that we don't have the farmers farming how they are at the moment. They might not. They might take the red pill and go out of farming, but that land will get purchased by other groups, community groups, that will then produce good quality food.
How about that? And that could be our way forward. At least one of them, couldn't it?
I think personally, if we could form that organisation, we are forming that organisation. We know on a daily basis. And what's come out of this for me, David, and even coming and sitting down with you today, we know we're building a puzzle. I've got that bit, that bit, that bit, that bit, that bit, and that bit. And as we've gone around the tour, we've gone, oh my God, they've got that bit. You've come in this morning and talked about pop-up shops, and I've gone, oh, that's that bit. Within this collectively together as a community of the damn country, we can resolve our food issues. We can make sure that there's better quality food on the plate that creates better health. That means we need less pharmaceuticals, and we can all live happily ever after.
Yeah. Do you know, it was a few weeks ago that we had an in-depth and detailed conversation with, as we call them, servant MP. Bearing in mind that MPs are meant to serve the communities they represent. So we call them SMPs, servant MPs. Now, we had a detailed conversation with this person. We thought how neat it would be for you, MP, if you had access to people's vision, ideas, innovations as to how life could be in the community, in the constituency, if you like. Would that be helpful in processing the sort of work that you're involved with in Parliament? And to our astonishment, the answer to that question was no. Now, it's our belief that all MPs, perhaps other than independent MPs, which we are totally in favour of, frankly, they're told to follow the line of the official party, whatever that might be. So their researchers will be laying down the law as to this is what we're doing and this is how we're doing it, and they're not interested in having ideas come from the community. Now that is a 180-degree difference to how we see life in the future. We believe that the community, or at least those people within the community that are interested to examine the future, to build a vision through innovation and ideas and so forth, they need to be involved in building the communities for the future. And we can see what you've been doing over the last 6 months. You've been kind of lifting the lid off and giving permission to people in the community to come up with ideas and thoughts and innovations.
Yeah. One of the things what's made me giggle travelling around the country is the fact that, we've been on the road 7 months nearly. We have gathered thousands, and I mean thousands, of contact numbers. And on a daily basis now, doesn't go past where I don't get somebody ring me and say, Mark, do you know someone who does this? Do you know someone who could advise me on this? I'm setting up a new dairy and I need help. I'm setting up a new pig farm, I need help. Could you advise me on this? Could you know someone who can guide us on this in this direction? The knowledge is all out there, and people are desperate to share that knowledge with each other. And that's what, we all think, oh well, if you're going to set up a farm, who do we need to talk to? DEFRA. DEFRA couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery. That's the reality of it. They're a sham. National Farmers Union, no fecking use. We've got to get back to people on the ground. And I'll tell you one of the biggest problems, and I've had this in the past on my own farm. You get a DEFRA vet turn up or an NFU rep turn up, and they turn up and they get their Belgian wellies out of the box and polish them before they walk around the farm, rinse them before they put them back in the box when they leave, and they're not real people. They've got no actual experience. For me, if I'm going to have someone give me advice, I want it to come from someone who's lived it, someone who's actually done it. I've got farmers that I know. Whilst I can speak on most subjects in farming, do I know everything? No. Do I want to? Absolutely not. Do I know enough about it that I can hold my own? But the most important thing I do know is I damn well know enough people who will know the proper answers. Absolutely. So for me, that experience is out there, and I can bring that knowledge to the table via not just me, via hundreds of farmers we've met across the country, and they're all gagging to just work together, work with the community to do something, to build a better food structure system and a better quality food system. There's nothing more farmers detest than producing something what they're not happy with, or not being able to look after their animals how they want to. And all of those things have been undermined at the moment.
Not to mention make a reasonable living out of what they're doing.
Well, that seems a bit too far-fetched for me as a farmer, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, having been on the road for the last 6 months, and starting out with essentially no plan at all, at your own admission.
Absolutely.
I can tell you're as excited as heck at the moment, but you kind of need a little bit of downtime to let things mature in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
And the question I'm thinking about is what do you think is going to happen in the new year?
Okay. Let's take one thing at a time. I think there is. Let's talk about the societal side to start with. I think that this winter we will have an outbreak of bird flu, TB, and blue tongue. Not one or the other. I think we'll have outbreaks of all three. And that will be a deliberate attack of bringing down the meat supply in the country. And within that, the dairy as well and the eggs as well, okay? I think that's on the cards.
Right. So that's quite a pessimistic view, isn't it?
It is. But now let's talk about the other side. For me, this weekend, we've got amazing things coming together. Now, as I say, we've been working with different companies and different farmers, what we've met around the country, that are interested in setting up a new food system, a new structure that everyone can work under, and bring a better produce to the table, bring in more return to the farmer. Okay? So, on our website, thebowlerhatfarmer.com, people will be able to go there and find out more about what's coming. Because obviously, I've spent 6.5, 7 months on the road. What is next for Mark? Now, I'm the first person to accept I'm not the best implementer of things. I've got a big mouth and a bowler hat, and I'm prepared to use them to get the message out. Now it's time to bring all of those people together that have said, Mark, how can we help? And set up a new food system. So on the website, there is 3 buttons. This goes live after the weekend. So people can go there. 1, can you volunteer your time? Because if the public want to know how to help, they want to know what to do, let's give them some options. 1, how can I volunteer? Okay, so put your name down to volunteer, and someone will come back to you and say, okay, here's the options in your area. That might be through helping with growing groups, helping with the distribution centres, whatever. But this is only going to happen if we work together. So that's option 1, volunteering. Option 2, maybe people would want to make a kind donation to support this project. For me, the next one I love, which is gift vouchers. So people can buy a gift voucher to support the cause, and then give that gift voucher to Mum for Christmas, or Auntie Flo for Mother's Day, whatever it might be, right? And then they get to cash that in for good quality food when they're ready. If you give people options, they can then say, well, actually, option A, B or C applies to me. If it doesn't, it might not be for them. That I can understand. We've spoken in front of 20,000 people, and 20,000 people have told me, I want change. I want to be involved. How do we change this? How do we do something about it? Now let's sit down. Let's have that conversation. That conversation is, we're going to form a new food system. That food system will all be about chemical free and organic. It will be about locally produced, locally sourced. Bear in mind that we set up now a year ago foodfindershub.org. The Food Finders Hub, before we set off on the Faulkner System tour, was set up to enable farmers to communicate with the local community, and the community to find their local farmers that sold produce, right? Lovely, simple. Nothing changes. We need people to still be able to do that. I've looked into the nutritional side of food, and it's appalling, but one of the things what intrigues me about food is this. When we were kids, if we got poorly, Mum gave us a spoon of local honey and said, take that, because you knew if you'd got the sneezes, that was going to give you the antibiotic and antibodies you needed to work with your body in your local community. Food is exactly, and I mean exactly the same. Your local food carries the nutrition your body needs for where you live, right? And people don't understand this. So if you're buying avocados from Mexico and asparagus from Argentina, and you've got noodles coming in from China, whatever it might be, and you eat all that, it gives your body no nutrition, because your body can't take from it what it needs in goodness, because it isn't there, because your body is looking for something what's local. Right?
A good English solid parsnip, for example.
Absolutely. We need to get people back onto the land growing food, because they're not only growing the food, they're growing their natural bios in their stomach. They're going to get strong, healthy again. The mental support is there for that. So I think we've got a lot of work to do. Okay? However, we've now got the answers. And I don't mean as in me we as collectively across the country, the thousands of people we've spoken to, that all see the same vision, all see the same dream, all want a better answer, are there going, how do we help? Now you can.
Brilliant. Well, this to me says that you have tapped into the vision. You with others, you've sculptured, if you like, the way forward for everybody. That's healthy. It's going to provide food as medicine for people, as opposed to Big Pharma providing what they do. It's a vision that needs to be spread far and wide. And as we've seen so many times and heard so many times in the mainstream media particularly, it's all focused on bad news, and that's no good for anybody.
Yeah.
But you give someone a positive, achievable vision. Yeah. There's no contest. We'll do this. Yeah. We'll do this, and that's exactly, Mark, what you've been doing for the last 6-7 months, and I know you're going to continue to do that, and it's going to be thoroughly exciting and fascinating to see how your vision, along with everybody else's vision that comes as a consolidation of the one vision, how that matures over the time ahead.
Yeah, we've got thousands of people that want to come together to deliver something special.
Yeah,
this isn't about Mark. This isn't about Mark's sports vision. Nothing. This is about collectively across the country. We've got all these people with great ideas. Let's get them around the table. Let's put a system together and then start bolting things on there left, right, and centre. You know, if you've got a local shop, it needs local food. What it can't grow and produce locally needs to come in from somewhere else. We can sort that out. One of the things that little shop gives you the opportunity to do is Mary and Flo in the village, who make a bit of jewellery or knits and things, quite happily get somewhere to sell their goodies.
Yeah.
And we need to get people's understanding of what's available to them locally. This is one of my frustrations. Come Christmas, I could walk into a supermarket and I could think to myself, that looks pretty, I'll get my mum that for Christmas. I'll get that for Gloria, and I don't really give a flying Frederick's worth of thought to them products. They'll look pretty, they'll do the job, right? Or do we go somewhere what's unique, somewhere where someone's taken the time to physically make something with their own hands, and you're in the position that they can say, okay, well, what we'll do is I'm now in the position that I can go into that shop, buy something what no one else is going to have for their mum on Christmas Day. And to me, that's what I want to be part of. I want to be able to benefit the little lady at home, the guy who produces a bag of kindling, and all that community. Because the thing is, if that community sells those products, that money stays in that community. We don't buy another supermarket yacht.
Yeah.
We don't benefit from them. We're never going to benefit from them. You know, I think if I could give anyone any advice at the moment, and I mean any advice, 2 things. 1, stock up on food. 2, make a difference to what's coming forward. 3, ditch any shares you've got in big corporations. Get out of everything you've got. If you don't want to be supporting the system, trash your shares, sell your shares, draw your money out of the bank, do something constructive with it, and let's all work together.
Mark, that's fantastic. And we're going to be thrilled to see what happens. And in fact, we'd be highly delighted, as you know already, to be in some way part of this happening. That's our passion. We want to see positive change and assist others in bringing that positive change about. Mark, this has been absolutely delightful today, listening to you, and it's going to be so interesting following your path and the path of others, perhaps together with ourselves, over the next 6 months or more.
I think we know we're in for an interesting time. We're at a very unique point in time, David, now, because we know everyone talks about, you can talk about the Great Reset or the Great Awakening. Whichever one you want to look at, things are changing.
That's right.
And we've got to make sure, and I'll backtrack slightly, if we are going to change things, there needs to be a proper change. And that change is only going to come if it's driven from the ground up, not the up down to the ground. So for me, I've been more than happy to do the tour. I've been blessed, I know that, to do this tour. As a result of doing the tour, we've got some great contacts which we can put to use. But it only works if other people get involved. Mark can't do this on his own. So the big thing people have got to do now is go, okay, I'll email, I'll message, I'll help, I'll volunteer, I'll donate, whatever that needs to look like. People have got to act. This is a time of act, you know.
Yeah.
So
absolutely terrific. Well done, Mark.
David,
as I say, we're gonna look forward to the future, the next 6 months or more, with fascination and excitement. To be honest,
lots of excitement.
You said earlier that you're not a religious person, and neither are we in Connect, but we are spiritual. And it's interesting that the comments that you've made on different levels about doors opening for you at curious points of time, and the synchronicities of meeting people at particular points in time, that says to us that you're on the right road here. And think it's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's like a tidal wave of positive change. It's going to happen. It's unstoppable. So we're going to see how that works out for everybody in the coming time ahead. Well, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon for this fascinating talk with Mark Byford on the subject of food and all related subjects. My name is David Charles, and thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to another meeting with Mark in the very near future to come. Thank you.